sport of running is tough. It will test your limits like none other. But can you imagine running double-digit miles, all while fighting America's second biggest killer? I caught up with one distance runner who has an incredible story of overcoming the odds in more ways than one. Some people hate it. Some people love it. And for Chris Smiley, running started off as nothing too serious.
Running actually started off as just like for fun and honestly for girls.
Chris was one of the 13,000 people who ran one of the recent Colfax marathon races. But it wasn't just his 6'6" stature, but also his story of perseverance that made him stand out.
1 minute countdown.
Life has its way of always presenting obstacles, and in September 2013, Chris came upon his biggest hurdle yet.
I actually was just having some soreness in my throat. At that time, I already realized that I didn't have a voice, and I assumed that I had laryngitis.
However, doctors discovered a large tumor on Chris's left vocal cord and something else that would change his life forever.
They discovered the tumor, and I ended up having emergency surgery that same night around midnight. And 3 days later, I found out I had cancer.
The tumor paralyzed Chris's vocal cord, bringing him down to a whisper. And just like running a marathon, he knew he was in for an uphill battle, this time with cancer. So what's it like for someone to go through chemo and radiation?
Finding out I had cancer was, I mean, psychologically it affects you, but going through the actual chemo and going through the actual radiation, I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
The surgeries, the chemo, and the radiation left Chris with multiple scars, left him with no hair, and left him with a permanent dry mouth. Was there any moment that you thought that you might die from this?
I really didn't. I mean, I had so many visitors on a daily basis, and I was always like smiling and just writing on my dry erase board because I couldn't talk at the time.
Through the entire process, he always kept an upbeat attitude. He was always positive, smiling, and I mean, seriously, his last name says it all.
And though he remained upbeat, with everything Chris was going through, he found one thing that could help him deal with it all. Running.
It just takes your mind off of the pain for, you know, that hour or 2 hours, or depending on what you're doing.
And no ailment was going to stop Chris from continuing his streak of running a Colfax race every year since 2006, including the first one after his diagnosis.
I was 2 weeks out of the hospital, like 2 weeks done with chemo, and I was just skinny, sick. I had no body fat, and I ran the half marathon with, you know, the steel trach in my throat and the feeding tube in my stomach.
A fighting spirit is something that is hard to break, and after rigorous training this year, Chris competed in and completed the urban 10-miler race. With some new bling to add to the ever-growing collection, Chris was all smiles after the race, which was his same mentality during his bout with cancer.
It sounds cliche, but you have to have a good attitude. I was told later that my attitude got me through this.
He hates the word inspiring, but it truly is. And you think how somebody could be basically on their deathbed, and the next year they're running a marathon.
But don't feel sorry for Chris. He doesn't want that. Instead, he wants anyone facing adversity to use his story as motivation.
Fight for yourself first, and then fight for the people around you, because that will get you through.
Chris Smiley defeated cancer with the help of running. So next time you see someone hitting the trail, understand the easiest battle they may be facing is completing one more mile. For the Met Report, John Madden. Pretty remarkable story. Now, Chris's cancer is in remission, and he currently has a GoFundMe page set up under his name to help with any medical expenses.